Welcome back to a new episode of No Filter, the video series by Clarins that values the uniqueness of each and every one of us. To celebrate Pride Month, Clarins has launched a special Q&A initiative to explore the questions that matter most to you. Many of you asked how to be more supportive, and that's exactly what we'll explore today. My name is Marine. I'm a consultant at Yes We Are agency as an expert on microaggressions and on LGBTQIA+ issues. In this episode, we'll explore how to foster a more inclusive and respectful work environment for all. What does it mean practically? It means actively supporting people who face discrimination by being aware, engaged, and ready to take action. You can support LGBTQIA+ people, but not only. We all have a role to play in standing with marginalized communities, racialized people, people with disabilities, and many more. At the heart of inclusion is recognizing our individual responsibility to speak up when we witness microaggressions and to create spaces where everyone feels safe and respected. We all have the power to build a more welcoming workplace by no longer being silent bystanders. The first step is to get to know the LGBTQIA+ community. So, if you haven't already done so, I invite you to watch the first episode of this series called Understanding Letters to Understand People. The first tip is to learn to identify and react to microaggressions. Informal discussions are part of everyday professional life, and as an LGBTQIA+ person, these moments can be sources of stress. I remember when I started my career as a young queer person, I would share my weekend with my coworkers at our coffee break, and I would feel my heart pounding, wondering if it was okay to mention my same-gender partner. In that situation, you never know if it's okay to share that information because you've often heard awkward remarks like, "Emily is having a baby shower. I thought she was a lesbian." Or, "Tom now works in cosmetics. I've been saying that he's gay for so long. I knew it." Thanks. And, "I've heard you're going to change gender. Are you going to have an operation?" Well, these phrases are microaggressions. Macroaggressions are comments or behaviors that are normalized, but which in reality are based on stereotypes. Stereotypes are beliefs about the differences between people, in this case LGBTQIA+ people, their skills, their psychological attitudes, and their behaviors. For example, thinking that all lesbians have short hair is a stereotype. Well, don't look at me, I'm a bad example. But even if we call them microaggressions, that doesn't mean they don't have a macro impact. In the UK, for example, 1 out of 5 employees feel that microaggressions have a negative impact on their mental health. That's why knowing how to identify a microaggression and how to react when you witness it is so important. In the questionnaire, some of you asked, how can I help in case of microaggressions? And how do you respond to homophobic remarks? So, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to behave and become an agent of change. The first step is to be able to identify the different types of microaggressions and remind that anyone can unintentionally commit them. If you witness a microaggression, even if you are not personally targeted, it can be constructive to educate the individual on how the comment or action could have been hurtful. So you can simply say, "Did you realize what you said? Can I explain why it might be hurtful?" Then you can offer a safe space for marginalized employees simply by asking how they're feeling and acknowledging the challenges they may be facing. However, the most important thing is to respect their needs in the moment. For instance, let's say you were with me at my coffee break back then, but I had gathered the courage to say that I went to a party with my girlfriend. And one of my coworkers answered awkwardly, "Marine, we don't need to know what happens in your bed." Well, if I don't answer him to offer an escape and check in with me, you can say, "Do you need a moment? Do you want to go get a coffee?" If I say yes, you can allow me to leave, maybe check in on how I'm feeling, and then ask me what I need in that moment. You can also explain to this coworker, with my permission, how this remark was hurtful. With all these tips, you're ready to create a safe space with your team. Second tip, how to react to a coming out at work. In the Q&A, someone asked, is asking someone about their LGBTQIA+ identity considered a microaggression? Well, even if you don't have bad intention, it can be considered as a microaggression since it might hurt some people. Indeed, some LGBTQIA+ people don't want to come out, and it's important to respect their decision. Furthermore, guessing if your colleague is LGBTQIA+ is often based on stereotypes. I also read another interesting question about the coming out. How to react if your colleague comes out? Okay, let's go back to my coffee break. This time I say, I'm going to spend the weekend with my girlfriend. We've been together for 2 years. How do you react? Well, first it's best to avoid answering, "Oh, I didn't know, you don't look like a lesbian," and simply reply, "That's great, where are you off to?" Because an employee who comes out expects above all to be listened to without judgment and not to be reduced to their identity. And contrary to what you might think, there is no need for "wow, you're really brave" type of reaction. If you feel the need to say something more, it's best to say something simple like, "Thank you for your trust, I'm here if you need me." As examples, keep in mind the following. First, don't force people to come out. Everyone is free to talk about it or not, and coming out is not mandatory. Second, say "thank you for trusting me." Third, respect the person's confidentiality if they so wish. And finally, if the person is coming out as trans, you can ask them which first name and pronoun they prefer to use. And if you get it wrong, don't worry, it can happen. The most important is to apologize and correct yourself. And since someone asked, what are the things that you would like people to stop doing or saying that will create a more inclusive environment at work? Here are a few things to avoid to help create a more inclusive space. Don't ask intrusive questions like, "Are you sure you're gay? Since when? Have you had a heterosexual relationship before?" Please don't. Don't assume a person's gender and sexual orientation based on their appearance. Don't gossip about it with other teammates without their consent. If someone came out to you, it does not necessarily mean that they are ready to come out to everyone. Third tip, my cultural recommendations. And if you want to go further, here are my favorite cultural recommendations. On the podcast front, I love listening to Armchair Expert every week, hosted by actors Dax Shepard and Monica Padman, who interview celebrities about the messiness of being human. And my favorite episode is the one with Jonathan Van Ness, whom you may know from the Netflix show Queer Eye. If you'd rather read, I have a fond memory of Dykes to Watch Out For by Alison Bechdel, which tells the story of a group of lesbian friends in the 80s. And finally, if you like documentaries, I would recommend Disclosure: Trans Life on Screen. It is a look at Hollywood's depiction of transgender people and its impact on American culture. Thank you for joining us for this second episode of No Filter. This dedicated series was created to answer the questions and concerns you shared with us honestly, openly, and without filters. We hope these tools and real-life examples have helped you understand how small action, like recognizing a micro-aggression, offering support, or welcoming a coming out, can make a big difference. Being inclusive is not about being perfect. It's about being present, curious, and open. It's about listening, learning, and standing up, even when it feels uncomfortable. At Clarins, I know many of us truly want to make a difference, not just with our words, but through our everyday actions. I believe we can all help create a workplace where everyone feels respected, valued, and safe, simply for being who they are. See you soon, and thank you for choosing to be a part of the change.